Number 10. Frane Selak. Let's start out with a story that's going to be a bit hard to believe, not because this man avoided death one time, but he avoided it 7 times, and then he won the lottery. Welcome to the curious life of Frane Selak. Frane Selak was born in Croatia in 1929, and throughout the timeline of his life, he's done a lot and lived through some of the most paramount events in recent history, and he survived all of it, no matter how many attempts the universe made on his life. For example, in 1962, Frane was on a train going through a cold and rainy canyon. The locomotive flipped off the tracks and crashed into a river. Frane suffered a broken arm and hypothermia, but survived because someone was able to get to him and pull him out of the submerged train. 17 others weren't as fortunate. The very next year, in 1963, he was on a plane that suffered a crash. But here's the twist. He wasn't in the plane as it crashed. He got sucked out of the plane while it was going down and landed on a haystack. No kidding. Fast forward to 1966, and he was on a bus that had an accident and went into a nearby river, and he was able to survive that too. Anyone here thinks that his curse pertains to modes of transportation? By 1970, he added being near a car when it exploded to his resume, as his car caught fire while he was driving, and mere seconds after he freed himself from the wreck, the car blew up. In 1972, his car tried to kill him again, as a malfunction led to flamethrowers being shot at him through the air vents, and yet his only casualty was his hair. He was fine until 1995, when he was hit by a bus, and only had minor injuries. The next year, though, he was in another car accident after a UN vehicle barely missed him and he went off a guardrail. His car crashed 300 feet down, and he only survived because he hung onto a tree. His reward for suffering through all of this? When he was 73 years old in 2003, he got a lotto ticket and won $1.1 million. Selak bought 2 houses and a boat with his winnings. Think about all that this man has endured in his life, that he is still living as far as we know. He escaped death countless times. Each one of those events could have and even should have been a death sentence for him, and yet he didn't die at all. This is very much a Hollywood movie waiting to happen, though if you were to ask him, he would have been fine with not having endured all of those near-death experiences. Number 9. The Boulder and the Farmhouse. There are many depictions in movies and TV shows that you think, that would never happen in real life. One of the biggest ones comes from Indiana Jones. The idea of being chased by a giant boulder is ludicrous, and the notion that something like that could exist and cause havoc is insane. Except it's happened before, and this farmhouse proves it. The event in question happened in 2014 in Italy within Ronchi di Termino. Apparently, there was a landslide, and in that landslide, a massive boulder broke free and barreled down the mountain towards this farm and farmhouse, and absolutely wrecked the farm itself while only missing the main part of the house by literally inches. Further showcasing the lucky break, a second boulder was also part of the incident, and it rolled right up to the main house before it stopped, inches away from the wall. As if all of that wasn't luck enough, the family who owned the farm and house weren't home when this event happened. Think of all the lucky breaks here that had to happen. Yes, property was destroyed, but the main house was spared. No one was home when it happened, and even the car that was parked outside wasn't touched. That's a lot of breaks. But imagine how shocked they were when they got home. Number 8. Roy Sullivan. Getting struck by lightning is seriously unfortunate, unless you turn into the Flash. Getting struck by lightning multiple times, though? Come on, that's just insane. Park Ranger Roy Sullivan was struck a total of 7 times by supercharged bolts from the sky that could have consigned him into oblivion. He worked at Shenandoah National Park, and in 1942 began the legacy of lightning that was to dog Roy throughout his life. He was near a fire tower when the weather took a turn for the electrical. Before he knew it, zap! A bolt hit his leg and took out his big toe. Ouch! This was the worst injury he received. He was never prepared for just how involved he was going to be with lightning, though. Over the years, he lost eyebrows, his hair caught fire, he suffered numerous burns, and even damaged his hearing. You'd think that eventually, lightning would win in the end, but he survived every single strike. His cause of death was suicide in 1983. There's about 1 in 280 million chance for someone to get hit by lightning in their lifetime, as noted by Mental Floss and other outlets. And because of this, he was entered into the Guinness Book of World Records. His time on Earth was a statistical miracle. Hey, real quick, if you're new to the channel, what's up? Welcome. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up and subscribe button. Number 7. Richard Byrd. While it's true that many people in regular life have suffered near-death experiences, some of these stories happen to the very celebrities that we idolize in Hollywood, both past and present. A great example of this was Admiral Richard Byrd. He was supposed to join the crew of a new 690-foot-long Navy dirigible known as the ZR-2, departing from Houghton, England on a trial flight, a very standard thing at the time. But Byrd, later to gain fame as an aviator and the first explorer to fly over the South Pole, missed his train the day before and was late arriving at the airfield. As a result of that, he was taken off the list of people to go onto the vessel, and they went on without him. Care to guess what happened next? While in flight, the ZR-2 broke in half, exploded in mid-air, and crashed into the Humber River near Hull. A total of 44 American and British crew members died. So if it wasn't for him being late, he likely would have died on that plane and would not have been able to get the various accolades he got in life. And should you think that his time would come to die on a plane, he died at home in bed at the age of 68. Number 6. Steve McQueen. Another Hollywood star that narrowly escaped death was actor Steve McQueen. One night on August 8, 1969, he was on his way to drop by actress Sharon Tate's rented home in Los Angeles, but supposedly had another offer from another friend and didn't show up. That turned out to be a very wise decision. Shortly after midnight, Tate, her unborn child, and 4 others were butchered by members of the Manson family cult. McQueen later learned that he was on a kill list of celebrities that cult leader Charles Manson created, which he believed also included Frank Sinatra, Elizabeth Taylor, and Tom Jones. Ever since then, he had a gun on him wherever he went. Number 5. Johnny Lowe. A Michigan man was going down the road when a steel beam flew at his car and impaled his windshield and missed him by mere inches. What happened was that there was a truck with steel beams on the back of it right in front of him, and it suddenly shifted lanes without much warning. The act of doing this led to one of the steel beams getting loose and flying towards him. By his own words, everything happened in slow motion in terms of the beam flying towards him, and though it did go through the windshield, it got caught on his steering wheel. Yes, for real, it was lodged into the steering wheel. I'm looking at my windshield with a big slice of it right in front of me, with a big 6-foot piece of steel sticking out of it, about half a foot away from me, Lowe said. The only injury he got was a cut on his eye. It was like being in an explosion of glass, Lowe said. When I got home, I had to take a vacuum cleaner and suck glass out of my ears. I'm one lucky man, Lowe said. I feel like I need to go play the lottery, definitely. Number 4. Danny Yamashiro. In 1985, mountain climbers Danny Yamashiro and his girlfriend were in a terrible situation, to say the least. While climbing up a mountain in Honolulu, Hawaii, Danny's girlfriend went and had a 20-foot fall off the mountain. She was fine, to be clear, but Danny felt the need to go and get her. But in doing so, he fell off the mountain himself. But he fell over 300 feet head first. But wait, there's more to this tale, because, you see, eventually, a rescue attempt was done for him and his girlfriend, and during that attempt, he fell again, this time 100 feet. He suffered severe head injuries, skull fractures, multiple tears in his scalp, a shattered ankle, damaged organs, extensive lacerations, and became comatose after getting to the hospital. All things considered, he should have died, and many around him absolutely felt that he was going to, due to the extensiveness of his injuries. But in a miracle, he survived. Not just that, he went on to become an author and a pastor. It's not hard to see why he went down this path, because many would say that he was spared by the grace of God, and that would move a lot of people to go and help people live better lives, as his likely should have ended on that mountain. Number 3. Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas was another legend in Hollywood and had many starring roles in major films. He was appreciated by all, especially his son, Michael Douglas, who would match his father's fame and even surpass it in certain ways. But back in 1958, his life almost came to an abrupt end. What happened? Well, he had planned to join film producer Mike Todd on a trip to New York in Todd's private plane, but his wife objected, and thus he stayed with her. Later on, he and his wife were in the car when the radio went off and noted that Todd's plane had crashed and no one on board survived the incident. Another A-list movie star who narrowly missed being aboard Todd's plane was Elizabeth Taylor, who was the producer's wife at the time. The irony of timing was not lost on Douglas and the others, not the least of which was that if he had died in 1958, he wouldn't have gone on to make one of his most popular movies ever, Spartacus. Sadly, many major stars have died in private plane incidents over the years. Number 2. George Papa Bear Hollis. If you live in Illinois, and especially if you live in Chicago, you know and respect the name George Papa Bear Hollis, because he was the man who created the Chicago Bears, a team that endures in the NFL to this day and is still one of its most hallowed franchises. But that legacy and franchise almost didn't happen, because when Hollis was just 20 years old, he was working a job at Western Electric and was supposed to go to a major company picnic in Indiana. He was instructed to go and take the nearby Eastland Ferry to get to Michigan City in Indiana, and he did just that. But he was late to get onto the ferry, and when he arrived, well, when I came to the river where the Eastland was docked, an appalling sight awaited. The Eastland had turned on its side. Only a few passengers had escaped. The final death toll was more than 800 men, women, and children. In fact, because he was actually on the passenger list due to him getting a ticket beforehand, some people thought he had died with the rest of them. Thankfully, especially for Bears fans, that didn't happen. Number 1. Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt is easily one of the most famous first ladies in the history of the White House, and a woman who was determined to help change the world no matter what people felt about her gender status in terms of the rights of women. But in 1887, at the age of just 2, she went through one of the most traumatic experiences in her life. Her family was on board the vessel known as the Britannia when it was rammed into by another ship. Her parents survived and were getting into the lifeboats when a crewman was trying to give Eleanor to them. A number of passengers were killed outright by the collision, and more were later found to have been tossed overboard. A biography about Roosevelt detailed the experience for her. The crewman finally freed her fingers, and Eleanor always remembered that fall, the feel of plummeting from the high deck above into the pitching lifeboat below, surrounded by cries of terror and shouts for help. Ever since that moment, she had a fear of both heights and water. But that fear didn't stop her from becoming a very important lady in history. Thanks for watching. What do you think of these crazy stories of people that narrowly escaped death? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like these. See you next time. Bye.